la vida.
Good afternoon, and welcome to CHCI's Leadership Luncheon. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome CHCI Chairman, Representative Ruben Hinojosa.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I may have your attention, I would invite each and every one of you to please take your place. And let me share with you that I just got off the phone. A very important person called me, and I want to share with you the message. With these spotlights on my eyes, it's blinding, and I hope that most of you have found your table. But let me say that the call came from former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. It is always an honor for me, as chairman of the CHC and the CHCI, to be able to communicate with some of our national leaders, and certainly Hillary Clinton is one of those persons. As you know, a month ago, she accepted to be our keynote speaker at today's event. And as you all have seen on all the media, that her daughter, Hillary's and Bill Clinton's daughter, Chelsea, was expecting her baby Friday. And then they said Saturday, and then it was delayed to Sunday for special reasons. But what's important, though, is that I saw on TV, on CNN, a running video of both Hillary and President Bill Clinton just looking at the beautiful granddaughter who was just born Sunday and how happy they are. And she said to me, Ruben, I know that you will understand that just like it is very important in the Latino community, family is very important in the Latino community, that Bill and I have to express our regrets that we cannot be at your event today. But please let them know that our granddaughter is doing just fine and that we are just delighted to be able to spend some time with the grandchild and with our daughter Chelsea. And for that, we thank her for her phone call and for expressing her regrets that she cannot be our keynote speaker today. Give her a big round of applause. This time, it is my pleasure to introduce someone very, very important to us in our organization, Deborah Rosado Shaw. And I can say to you that I am honored to welcome to CHCI's Leadership Luncheon an amazing individual who is going to be addressing you in a few moments. We have an amazing program for you this afternoon that is all about women and Latina leadership. And as many of you know, CHCI sponsors play a major role in helping us reach out to the Latino leaders of the future. As chairman, I have observed that one of our most committed sponsors over the years has been PepsiCo. All the members of the board and the advisory council are very pleased to have with us the Senior Vice President and Chief Global Diversity and Engagement Officer of PepsiCo by the name of Deborah Rosado Shaw. Deborah is a nationally renowned visionary, a business leader, and entrepreneur. At PepsiCo, she brings together diverse strengths, backgrounds, and perspectives to achieve the company's strategic business imperatives and to advance their goals and drive innovation. Please join me in welcoming Deborah Rosado Shaw.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Yeah, I'm so thrilled to be here today. And I really want to thank the Congressman for such a lovely introduction. You know, I'm really honored to be a part of this luncheon today, and so important to be among so many amazing Latina leaders. This discussion and conversation that we're having now about fostering women leaders is critically important, as I see many Latinas in the audience who have personally been an inspiration and source of support for my own career and personal development. And I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the many women who came before us, our mothers and their mothers, whose courage and tenacity helped make our lives possible today. You know, I've been a part of the PepsiCo family for more than a decade in an advisory capacity. So I recently accepted our CEO Enrique's invitation to lead the company's strategic efforts for diversity and engagement. And an engaged, diverse workforce is critical to PepsiCo achieving its vision of performance with purpose, because delivering great performance while doing the right things for people and communities all around the world. Quite simply, we can't achieve sustainable growth without the leadership of women and minorities in the business. We're driving innovation that makes us a top-rate company with most powerful portfolio of brands. Some of you saw the brands outside, Tropicana, Quaker, Gatorade, and a great place to work. The strong diversity commitment at PepsiCo, so to close the corporate gender gap in executive positions and among boards of directors, mirrors the vision of our CEO, Enrique. You know, she herself is quite something and a role model of women breaking the glass ceiling. And like myself, she believes that it's not enough to bring talented Latinas to our company if we don't provide the resources and leadership opportunities they need to showcase their full range of talents. Performance with purpose is also the foundation of our commitment to the communities we serve. We care about the issues and challenges facing the Latino community. We focus on programs to educate our families on making healthier choices and making nutritious foods more accessible. This is why we've partnered with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute. Since its inception, PepsiCo and the PepsiCo Foundation have supported fellowships and programming so that Latino college and graduate students have the distinct opportunity to gain policymaking experience in Washington, D.C. This support is so important because it creates the workforce and leadership of tomorrow, including future CEOs, boards of directors, members, senators, and a little later I'm going to meet with the fellows, and I have to be really mindful because I just know one of those just might be the next president of the United States, right? You know, I'm really proud to say that we recently stepped up our commitment with a $2.5 million grant, the largest in CHCI's 40-year history. It will, yes. Yes. And this commitment will go toward CHCI's Leadership Center and support one of the largest ever classes of PepsiCo Foundation Fellows. I couldn't be more proud. One of the issues, yes, thank you. And really, thank you for your work, CHCI. One of the issues that these PepsiCo fellows will address is the health challenges facing our Latino community. This continues to be a core focus for PepsiCo. I want you to know that just last week at the Clinton Global Initiative in New York, we announced a partnership with the Alliance for a Healthier Generation and the American Beverage Association to reduce beverage calories in the American diet by 20% by the year 2025. Thank you. You know, given the higher incidence of obesity and diabetes in our communities, we're working with Hispanic leaders and community groups to ensure access to reduced calorie beverage options. I'm really excited about what PepsiCo and CHCI will do together and the lasting impact we will have through these talented Latino leaders, and they're so impressive, as well as the partnerships with Hispanic leaders to encourage healthier Latino families. What I know is that the future holds limitless possibilities for each and every one of us, and there's no doubt in my mind that Latinas will be leading the way there. But our work begins really with every moment of now, every action, every conversation, every commitment. And we are grateful to be alongside you in this much-needed endeavor. Thank you so much for having me today. And I'd like to welcome a couple of people to join me up here because we have a little presentation to make. So, wow. Thank you. I'm going to walk out here.
Ooh. Deborah, I've never seen a check this big before. Wow.
It's a pretty big check.
Wow.
A privilege.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think I'm going to escort her.
Deborah,
Yes.
I want to. When somebody hands you a check for $2.5 million, you say, wow, I want to really take this opportunity to thank PepsiCo, the PepsiCo Foundation, for the tremendous investment. And you heard Deborah say, this is the largest single gift given to CHCI, and I just didn't want to let you go before I personally thanked you, and please send our regards to your CEO, Indra Nui, and the powerful impact we're making together.
Thank you.
Gracias.
You know, really, I'm just here holding the check, but it's really on behalf of over 275,000 associates in 200 countries who believe what we believe, who work hard every day, and their work actually makes this check possible. So they're really who to be thanked. Bye.
And I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't also congratulate Deborah. This is her, she's been at PepsiCo for a little over 2 months, even though she's been working with PepsiCo for a while. But congratulations to her, the entire PepsiCo team. She is a delight to work with, and a delight with the entire team. Want to once again thank you, and thank you for being the sponsor of today's luncheon. So also, our host for the conference is Bank of America. I want to tell you something really special about them. First, last year they made a $1 million donation. This is Bank of America, to our capital campaign as we try to raise money for a new headquarters. And Bank of America was not just there, they've been supporting for many years. They're here today as our conference host for the entire conference, made it possible. They get it. They're there because they understand the mission and they understand the growing demographics of our community. In fact, 1 out of 5 of all of the Bank of America checking accounts is Latinos, and they have 60 billion in deposits from Latinos. So they understand the business imperative, they understand the community and customer imperative, and they also have a Latina on their board of directors, Monica Lozano. So clearly Bank of America gets it. Please join me in thanking Bank of America for being our conference host. And a couple of other special sponsors for today's luncheon. In addition to PepsiCo is the American Federation of Teachers. I want to call out Cesar Moreno and Maria Neira. Thank you. The American Federation of Teachers, thank you for being a longtime partner with CHCI. We're pleased to have Maria Neira on our advisory council and continue to work with her to really make sure that as we are developing young Latino talent, that AFT and our teachers are there with us along the way. And also, I want to thank Mary Kay. We have Teresa Flores. If you can please stand up, Teresa. Teresa and Mary Kay, when we told them we wanted to showcase Latina leaders and our Latina members of Congress, they stepped up and said, we want to be a part of that historic session. So thank you for that. We also just wrapped up our summits, a very powerful, engaging policy summits that we wrapped up today. We're going to have some more tomorrow. But I want to thank our co-chairs, the chairs, the members of Congress that helped us pull all of those sessions together. On the education session, we had Congressman Raul Grijalva from Arizona and Congressman Pedro Pierluisi from Puerto Rico leading up education. Let's thank them. On electricity, energy reliability, and green energy, Congressman Ben Ray Lujan from New Mexico. Thank you, Congressman, for helping with that session. He was also joined by former Secretary Ken Salazar, and want to really thank all of our energy partners that helped us put it together. In the oil and gas and energy workforce panel, I want to thank Congressman Enrique for that tremendous session as well. On thank you. Financial security and financial education, Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez. Thank you for chairing that session. She was joined by Congressman Horsford as well from Nevada. Another dynamic panel on the unaccompanied minors, the long-term solutions. Let's thank Congressman Castro and Congressman Tony Cardenas from California for chairing that session. And we had a couple of other special guests and members that came through to some of the session. Congressman Pallone from New Jersey is here. Thank you, Congressman Pallone. And Congressman Steny Hoyer, the Democratic whip, was also joining and visiting some of the sessions. Let's thank them for their engagement. Another partner with us this week, I want to recognize the National Hispanic Caucus of State Legislators. We have a lot of state legislators and leaders from around the country with us here for this conference. They had over 50 members in town. So when you see them, let's thank and welcome the National Hispanic Caucus of State Legislators. Now it is my privilege and honor to introduce our moderator for today's lunch, Enrique Acevedo. Enrique is an award-winning journalist who has written dozens of articles in newspapers, magazines, and online media. As a reporter, a senior reporter and correspondent, host and co-host, and anchor, he has provided special investigative reports and covered a diverse array of headline news. Currently, he is the co-anchor of Noticiero Univision, edición nocturna. This is Univision's evening news program, where he has been covering major news events and providing audiences with quality journalism since April 2012. Please help me in welcoming Enrique Acevedo.
Well, hello. It's a pleasure to be here. It's my first year at the event, and it's been amazing. We've been talking about Latino leaders, the leaders of the future, and I was just in a room full of high school students. Really intimidating, by the way, but in a way, it was quite an experience because we were talking about all sorts of issues. These are freshmen and sophomore kids in high school, and they were asking me about gender equality and voter ID laws, world affairs. It was like being on Crossfire, but with real substance. It was really good. No, kidding. Well, before we get to our lively exchange with Latina leaders, we have a special conversation with someone who has graciously accepted for a second time to join CHCI on stage. And the perfect gateway to his introduction is a conversation I just had backstage with Gabriela Gomez. She used to be a fellow here at CHCI, then went on to work in Capitol Hill and the Department of Education. Also, now she's working for the Gates Foundation, making real change and having a real impact in the way education affects our community. So we're not only talking about abstract examples, these are people who are making a difference, and of course CHCI has a lot to do with that. So Allan Golston is the president of the United States Program for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He leads the foundation's efforts to ensure that all students receive a high-quality education that leads to success in college and in their careers. He oversees the U.S. program, major areas of investment, of course, education, Pacific Northwest, and special initiatives and advocacy. Please welcome Allan Golston. Perfect. Thank you so much. I guess we'll have our mics on in a second.
I think.
Perfect. Well, we're going to do this while people are having lunch, so I hope they pay some attention. I'm kidding. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. I know this is the second year you're part of this event, so thank you so much for that.
Great.
And I just want to start out with a very simple question, and of course, give you the chance to make a brief introduction, but tell us about why education has become the central component of the Gates Foundation here in the United States.
Sure. So first, let me just thank you for inviting me back. It's great to be here for the second time. So Bill and Melinda started the Gates Foundation in education specifically because they believe that all lives have equal value and that everyone should have an opportunity to reach their full potential. And if you look at what's been happening in this country for the past decades, education is becoming more and more central to economic viability. But if you look at the outcomes of what's happening with students, particularly Latino students, African American students, low-income students, we're not getting the job done. They're not getting the access to the education that they need in order to have a healthy and productive life. And so the Gateses wanted to do something about that, and that's why education is central to our U.S. work.
I guess it's a source of many other things, right? We talked about it before we had a chance to come here to Washington. We talked over the phone, and we mentioned the importance of education as sort of catalyzer for a lot of things to happen in these kids' lives.
Yes, so education correlates to a number of things, not only economic viability, but health outcomes, community engagement, voting, all sorts of things that are essential to the fabric of what makes this country great. And so while education isn't the only thing and only set of assets that people need to be successful, it is one of those central, essential variables that you have to have in order to be an engaged, viable, economically viable person that's living in this country.
So when you look at the Hispanic community and Hispanics in high school, for example, dropout rates, what worries you the most in your evaluation, in your, when you make a diagnosis of what's going on, what worries you the most about what's going on with Latinos and education?
So there's some good news. The good news is that if you just look at last year, Hispanic students that are graduating high school or attending college at the same rate roughly as their white peers. So that's good news.
Right.
If you look at, though, who's getting a degree, there's a huge gap between Hispanic students and white students, even African American students. I think the thing that troubles me the most is the persistent achievement gap in 4th grade. You have a huge gap in English language arts and reading, and a huge gap in math between Hispanic students and white students. And that is really something that we have to solve.
And this is in 4th grade specifically, that's where you start looking at this.
Exactly.
And what are some of the things that we're doing to combat this?
So there's a couple things that we think are really important that we're focused on. Number one is that it starts with great expectations. What do we expect students to need to know throughout their education journey? We have supported this effort called the Common Core State Standards, which lays out a logical progression both in math and English language arts of what students need to know. But just having expectations isn't enough. You need to support great implementation, but most importantly, great teaching. So helping teachers do their best work in the classroom is what we're doing, helping them get the feedback, but also the professional development that they need to improve their instruction.
Now, you mentioned Common Core, and it's being part of a national discussion. It hasn't been free of controversy, and teachers have been some of its most lively critics.
Yeah.
I mean, what are some of the benefits that you see, the advantages of Common Core? And we'll talk about the criticism too.
So actually 63% of teachers are very supportive of the Common Core. Where you see the challenge is in places where it hasn't been implemented well, where teachers haven't been supported to do the work. But one of the reasons that we feel strongly about it, I'll just illustrate it with a story. I was in Dayton, Ohio a few years ago, visiting some schools, and I met this young woman who just graduated from high school. She was the top in her class. She'd done everything that she was asked to do. She went to class, she studied, she got good grades, she got a great degree, a diploma, so she thought. And she enrolled in this college called Sinclair Community College. She walked literally less than a mile away to that college within 3 weeks of getting a high school diploma, and only to learn that she did not have the skills to do college level work. So this is one of the defining moments and gaps and problems in education today. There's a huge gap between what students are learning in high school and what they are expected to learn in the K through 12, and a gap between what they're expected to know in college. So that gap is what we're trying to close, and that's why we think that the Common Core is an important ingredient there.
On the other hand, you were talking about teachers and the importance of preparing these teachers for their classrooms. And innovation is, of course, associated with the Gates Foundation. What are some of the ways that these two elements are intersecting: innovation, creativity, technology, and how we prepare teachers for the future of education, for the future classrooms?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've learned from teachers, and we've spent a lot of time both engaging with teachers, talking with teachers, focus groups, is that they don't have enough time to be able to get the types of skills and support and feedback to improve their instruction. So one of the things that we're really focused on are innovative ways to help teachers have more time. It's really a problem that teachers spend all day in the classroom, and the only free time they have in order to do anything is either during their summer breaks or between the hours of, let's say, 8 and 10 p.m. But if you can find time during the day so that they can have those opportunities both to collaborate with each other, to engage with students, but to just have the time to improve their instruction or to think about what their instruction, that's one of the ways that we think is most important to do it.
I had the chance to learn a little bit more about what the Gates Foundation is doing for Latinos and in education. Last year, I think, or the year before that, I went to Seattle and talked with Melinda Gates about the efforts of the foundation. And after that, we were invited to a school in Tampa, in Florida. And the school had been struggling for a while, now had adapted all these new ways of going about things. They were doing better in evaluation. How important is to have this standardized testing to evaluate schools and teachers and, of course, students in basically obtaining the objectives that we talk about? Oh. If we can
Ladies
get
and
that
gentlemen,
yeah.
may I have your attention, please? We have two very, very important individuals here giving us information that is very valuable. Allan Golston of the Foundation, the Gates Foundation, and the moderator, Enrique Acevedo. Would you please try to listen, eat, but listen to the valuable information that we have brought you? I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you so much. So let's start from the beginning.
That's right.
My name is Enrique. No, I'm just kidding. No, we were talking about standardized testing, and it's also, we just touched upon Common Core. It's also it hasn't been free of controversy.
Yeah. So standardized tests, there's no question from our perspective that there's too much testing being done in education. So the question is, what are the right tests, and how do you use them to really improve education and instruction? So we're working with an array of partners across the country to try to resolve that question. How do you both reduce the amount of testing that we're doing in schools across the country, but increase the quality of the tests that are done, that are necessary? One of the reasons you do need to have some level of testing is you need to understand where students are. One of the reasons we know there's an achievement gap is because of the standardized tests. So there's no question the concern that there's too much, but the right testing and the quality is something that we feel has to be resolved.
I mean, you have to worry when, I just learned about this story this week, teachers in Atlanta were cheating, basically, were erasing the answers from their students and putting the correct answers in the tests. And now they're on trial, I think 8 teachers or something like that in Atlanta. And of course, you have to ask yourself, are we putting too much stress on these teachers and these schools to come out with good evaluations and good grades? I mean, too much testing going on.
Too much, definitely too much. But I think that that's potentially a case where not having the right tests to really help understand what's happening in the district could be one of the reasons or one of the solutions to resolve that. So really getting clear on what students need to know, how do you know that they're learning it, and doing it at the right interval is something that we need to get to in this country.
This is already happening in many school districts across the country, but by 2023, the expectation is that 30% of all public school students are going to be Hispanic.
Yes.
And how do we rethink education in this country to basically be ready for this demographic explosion that it's coming now to the classrooms? We've seen it at the polls, we've seen it in other areas, but now it's coming to the classrooms.
Coming to the classrooms. So a few things. I think one, partnering with organizations like National Council of La Raza, MALDEF, LULAC, Excelencia in Education, other organizations, those are critical organizations that really are connected to the communities and the public systems, and working with them to really get ahead of the challenge and to really help districts wrestle with this, what we think is an opportunity, is number one. Number two is that there are a number of barriers that are unique to Hispanic students. If you take just the DREAM students, for example.
Yes.
There's a situation where they're focused on education, they're in the only home that they've known, and yet our country denies them access to opportunities that really should be free, that should be just civil rights opportunities. So, one of the ways that we have tried to address that issue is to both support access and legal assistance through DACA so that these students' status isn't a barrier, but also to provide financial support through the dream.us, which is to really help remove some of the financial barriers.
Right.
So we think that those types of things are important. Also, how teachers help design lessons in the classroom specifically for ELL students, which are 40% of the students, is also a priority for us and should be a priority for the country.
That was my case, by the way, in middle school, so I have a personal attachment to that. I'm contractually obligated to ask you about the partnership between Univision and the Gates Foundation. No, I'm not, but I'm really proud of it because I've been part of that effort, and I've seen that it's brought about real change. Can we talk a little bit about that? It's been there for I think 3 years now, 4 years.
4 years.
4 years and going strong.
Going strong. So we were struggling to figure out ways to have the reach that we felt we needed to have, not just the Gates Foundation, but a lot of partners that are working in public education and outreach to the Latino community. And the partnership with Univision has been just outstanding. We have had 2 efforts with them. One was called SL Momento. The other one is called Univision Educación. And both of those are about getting information out to parents, enabling and supporting and talking about a college-going culture, thinking about college as early as possible and how to engage with the public school systems in order to support the community and the students in order to improve the outcomes of Latino students. And we're just very grateful to have the partnership, and it's been great, and look forward to continuing it.
I mean, when you talk about education, people, especially during lunch, it might not be the most, attractive subject, but let me tell you, I think during the first year, the education fair organized by Univision and of course by the Gates Foundation too, had, I think, about 50,000 people in attendance.
Yeah.
Not a lot of events other than soccer.
Yeah,
get 50,000 Latinos in the same place at the same time. And these people were there, their families were there asking about scholarships, about how they can start out saving for their kids' college fund, and really specific questions. One, I had the expectation, maybe the idea that they're going to be worried about very specific and immediate issues, but they were planning for the future and telling their kids that they should start thinking about grad school, forget about college.
That's
so
right.
It was very exciting to see that.
Yeah, we wouldn't ever have been able to accomplish together that level of outreach and impact without the partnership with Univision.
But there are also other issues that the Gates Foundation is working on. I know healthcare is one of them, and issues like, for example, homelessness in Seattle. I think it's being Washington State.
Yes.
It's being, and it's important because of you were telling me, and I found it very interesting because it's about families basically, right?
Yeah. So, one of the challenges also in this country is family stability, and particularly around family homelessness, which is a priority for us in Washington State. And we have been working at this issue for about 15 years, just a little less than that. And through a number of partnerships in low-income communities, particularly focused on communities of color in Washington State, we've been able to see a reduction in family homelessness, both through government partnerships, both getting systems to talk to each other, but also just really engaging with the communities and targeting assistance to their specific needs.
And this is important because Hispanics have been one of the communities that have suffered the most for extreme poverty.
Exactly.
And that is also a major cause of homelessness. So
Absolutely.
It's part of that. And then healthcare. And there was a component that linked healthcare to education.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So the research is very clear that you have better health outcomes and you're just healthier the higher the education. You have both your parents but also the individual themselves. And that's why we feel really passionately about this. If you look at early childhood learning, if you look at fourth grade levels, if you look at college attainment, any of those indicators also has a very strong correlation to that person's health. So you kind of get a sense of why education becomes so important to address in this country.
Well, thank you again for joining us for a second time.
Yes.
And it was a great conversation. I know people enjoyed it.
Thank you.
As they are with their dessert right now. But it's been great, and we look forward to working together with the Gates Foundation.
Next time.
Allan,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
All right.
Gracias, muchas gracias.